Next we have Malaika. Malaika Vas is a filmmaker, TV presenter for National Geographic Explorer and CEO of Untamed Planet. She and her team has produced award-winning films and series for media networks like National Geographic, Al Jazeera, Discovery Channel and the BBC, covering topics from climate change and illegal wildlife trade to conservation and labor issues. Malaika has recently named to be the Forbes 30 under 30 for North America list for her work and media entrepreneur and filmmaker. Next we have Doel Trivedy. Doel is a producer and director at Riverbank Studios and National Geographic Explorer with over 20 years of experience in documentary filmmaking. She is also the VP for documentaries and the International Forum for Motion Pictures Producers. Her award-winning films and series spanning natural history, conservation and climate change have earned national and international recognition and created some real-world impact. I would now like our moderator to take over.
So, hi everyone. I hope you guys liked the films. I definitely did. I was biting my nails during the Russell Viper rescue. That was very, very cool. And Ben's right here. So it must have been very, very dangerous when that was happening. And yeah, so how you were doing? How was it watching these films again? It must have been a while.
I mean, it's always funny watching your own films. But first of all, hey everyone, good to see you. Thank you for coming. And I think it's amazing what Miramar Dialogues is trying to do with conversations about our incredible home state and our coastline right here. So thank you for being here. And yeah, I think I had more fun watching your film obviously because I hadn't seen the episode, and I think it's really cool to have television that focuses on important conservation stories, because you often see the longer length feature documentaries that go to film festivals and that stay within silos, but I think for it to be mainstream like this and to be as popular as a series is really cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I haven't watched that in a really long time, so that was fun watching, and I hadn't seen Malaika's this film as well. It's on YouTube, by the way, so go check it out. Yeah.
Also Disney Plus Hotstar. Both of them are available on YouTube and Disney Plus Hotstar.
It's not Malaika's film, it's actually Untamed Planet's film. So Amoli, Akash, many more people in our team work together.
Sorry. But thank you for being here. It's really cool, and I'm going to let Malaika take the lead because she's the presenter. I'm going to just answer Amoli's questions.
No.
And any snake-related questions, Ben is right here. So, and in fact, he just messaged me before the film played that he just was at a rescue where a rat snake died in a net. So this is very relevant, and it's still happening. So the work never gets done. So you have to go back and talk about this somewhere else. Share the YouTube link with a few others.
For sure. Do you guys have any crazy behind-the-scenes stories from the shoot that you can share with us?
You want to go first?
Why don't you start?
Crazy. So many. Oh my God. We filmed for 2 years, non-stop. We filmed for crazy you can say. You said any behind the scenes story. Now I have to really think about crazy story. So you go first if you have one.
Well, I think that this is one of our projects in this at Untamed Planet. We do natural history films, we do investigative documentaries, and we tell stories all over the world. We've done everything from filming undercover with criminal syndicates in China, spending time with cartels in Colombia recently. Amoli decided that she was going to send our team there. But I think what was really special about this actually was spending time in my own home state. I grew up here. I left home when I was 15, and I haven't lived here for the last 12 years. So coming back and really spending a good amount of time with my team, rediscovering Goan parts, feeling this authentic sense of pride that I talked about in the episode was really something special. I remember when we saw the otters, I just felt proud. I felt so incredibly proud that we have this amazing natural heritage. We often are so proud of our historical heritage and the culture that we have here in Goa, but I think the way that culture and nature intersect in our state is really special.
You have a
Back to my crazy story. So we filmed for 2 years through 2 months of monsoon, many months of summer, and so there are lots and lots of crazy stories. But I think one of the most special, one of the moments was when we were at a rescue of someone's home, and we figured by when we got there that it was a spectacled cobra, venomous snake. And when we asked them why did they call us, and how did they know who to call, they said, oh, we watched the show and we know that when you see a venomous snake, you're not supposed to touch it, and when you see a venomous snake, you're supposed to call a rescuer. I think that was a very special moment for me because someone had seen it and made a decision based on what they had seen. So I was hoping there were many more like that. So that was a good one.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I hope Ben has many more rescues to come and all those snakes are saved. And so how do you choose the stories? How do you know that this would be a good film?
Wow, haven't all the filmmakers and artists tried to answer that question? Well, I think stories come to you in your sleep when you're dreaming, and especially I think people who tell stories are filmmakers, artists, writers. We're constantly very curious people. We are, looking at things, we're engaging with the world, and I think how do stories come to me? Malaika, this was your question. I can't answer this, but I think they find you, and I think you're curious enough. You feel passionate about certain things, and you see the different stories. There was a reason why this show was made. It was made because for a long time we moved to Goa. We live here for the last almost 8 years, and we'd heard a lot of how rich Goa is, and snakes. And it wasn't just Goa. I mean, we've been making wildlife films, so we'd heard what snakes go through, the kind of fear people have with snakes. And when we met Ben and Louise, the way they were rescuing, the way they were not posing with snakes, we really wanted to tell the kind of rescues they were doing. And so I think that was an immediate match. And we really and we'd done like informal talking for years with children, especially asking them what kind of snakes they know. And invariably the answer would be rattlesnake, black mamba, anaconda, all snakes you don't find in India. So, which is crazy. So it was because they were watching shows that were imported from outside, and they knew those are the snakes that exist in the world, and they didn't know about more than 300 species of snakes in India. So the intention was to tell a story that would bring Indian species to the forefront. Also, to then when we started learning with them of how you can do a rescue safely. Like in the last rescue you saw, he didn't want to touch the snake, and that's like the ultimate way to do a rescue. You don't touch a wild animal. And so things like that we wanted to put. So then this story, you want to tell this, and then it's about giving it a form and shape, and that's where a filmmaker comes in, I suppose. And we wanted to make it really entertaining so that people who don't care at all about snakes would want to watch it. So yeah, that's how this story came to be. And different stories come in different ways. Some stories just come because as an artist, you just want to tell that story. You have to. Can't help it.
You did actually shift the cultural zeitgeist, I think, around what kind of species are exciting for television, because Doel and her team's series came out before our series did. And when we have conversations with television networks in America very often, or in Europe, we hear the words snakes don't rate, let's have tigers in there, or let's have red pandas, like the species we're filming right now. So there's always this overemphasis on the cute and the cuddly and the beautiful animals. But I think because your team had done that series, when we were talking about our film and our series, when we pitched different snake ideas, it was so much easier to get the TV network commission us to say, let's go ahead and put these, because actually in India, snakes do rate well on television. And I think that that's an interesting shift that can happen with just one production company deciding to take a risk in telling the story of the incredible snakes of Goa. So hopefully that results in so much more acceptance for stories of ecological wonder that are not big, charismatic megafauna.
Yeah, and I think that's really good. I mean, whether this show had that impact or not, but you know, you've got to do a bit everywhere. And I think even with people who were working on the show, including myself, I didn't know anything about snakes. I mean, I learned so much just being on the rescues, and you know, even the broadcasters and the way they, like, this was in the 4th season, so after doing 30 episodes, and this is pretty conservation upfront with bringing the net issue. This wasn't. It wouldn't have flown in season 1, you know, where they wanted more. I mean, not they wanted it. What sells on TV. So even they found their balance with how they can take a risk with storytelling. So we got to push the system.
Absolutely. And sometimes push from the inside. I mean, to answer your question, how do we choose the stories? You and I know together when we're working on projects at Untamed Planet, we're deciding the stories that speak to us, but equally the stories that actually have the ability to reach wide audiences. Because I think we need to really mainstream conservation if we want to have an impact and change policy. And when I started my career, I was like very much into super obscure stories of that one species that's being trafficked across Asia. But I think as I get older, there is a focus on telling those stories, but equally focusing on what will work for global audiences so that you can get that into the mainstream. So when we're choosing stories, I think, like Doel said, there are stories that you absolutely cannot not tell. Once the seeds are planted, it becomes a part of who you are. And these projects sometimes take up to 3, 4, 5 years. I'd like to be shorter typically, but even if it's 2 years, that's a lot of time. So you're pouring into it, and you want to make sure that it is something that is authentic to who you are. I feel like reading is my favorite hobby. It's something I do all the time. So I often come across ideas that plant the seeds for projects that end up becoming documentaries. Like I remember reading this book by Naomi Klein called This Changes Everything. And there was a segment in there about how climate change deniers are changing the conversation about climate change in the United States. And that was actually one of the first triggers that set me on the journey of making our recent film Sacrifice Zone, which is about how extractive industry impacts communities of color. So the impetus is always out there, you just gotta be ready to receive it and then channel that into a vehicle for change and impact through our films.
Right. And both of you have been making films for such a long time, and storytelling is something that's constantly changing and evolving. So, what's been your journey? How has the way that you tell stories changed over the years?
Well, I think I need to tell a backstory here. So, I actually worked with Doel when I was very, very young. So, about 15 years back, Doel and Gautam and her
That dates me. Like how?
legendary father-in-law and colleague and mentor, Mike Pandey, they were the first people I ever worked with in wildlife filmmaking. So it's incredible to have someone who was the first person I worked with and also someone on my team on the same panel today. So it's really special to have that. And I learned so much from your focus on impact at the time, because I feel like there were documentary filmmakers in the early 2000s that were doing stories.
Dating.
They were doing stories that were focused on getting tigers onto broadcast television. But really the way that Riverbank is focused on impact, I think is really special.
Sweet.
And so both of you also are making films outside of the traditional wildlife and natural history bucket. Why is it important for you to tell these stories as much as the adventurous and television-friendly wildlife films?
I think I answered that with the snakes example of reaching audiences beyond, like, everyone who's here cares about wildlife, 100%. So this is like talking to the, they know everyone here, I'm sure, is contributing in their own way. That's why they're here to watch this. So we want to talk to people who wouldn't show up for stuff like this, who wouldn't care, who wouldn't read stuff. So for them, I think that entertaining, that's how Snakes SOS was born. And a lot of the shows we've done in the recent years, one we did with one of this very popular presenter called Ranvijay Singha. He was on Roadies, and we wanted to do, and he has a huge youth following. So it was they wanted to do a show which was travel show. But what we did was we turned around. That's what you can do as a filmmaker, communicator. We turned it around and we made it into a travel show in wildlife parks, but and by the end of it, the presenter who was crying, he was literally crying because he met so many people, botanists, biologists, conservationists, who do this. Actually, one day he came to me and said, Doel, ये लोग ये सब क्यों करते हैं? And I was like, they're passionate about this, and he couldn't believe it because people were doing it for nothing. So I think that's the thing, is that use these platforms to kind of reach the audiences that are beyond the echo chamber, and we can all do that. So I think that's why I try and tell these kind of stories. Sorry. No, I'm talking too much.
No.
Reel it back in.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I think what I was thinking about the topic is that it's also about like changing the narrative within films, because I think very often we've positioned environmental conservation as a sacrifice, as something that we must do in order to protect the pandas or protect the tigers. But something I'm very excited about is repositioning nature conservation and sustainability is something that is incredibly selfish. It's good for the private sector, it's good for the top line and the bottom line, it's good for public health. It's something that we should do if we care about business, if we care about immigration, if we care about sustainability, if we care about our beaches. Whatever the issue is that you care about, sustainability is tied to that. You cannot protect any of these core issues or values that we hold so dear to ourselves without actually looking after nature. And I think that repositioning from talking about only the pandas and only the tigers, to talking about public health and talking about how our economy will benefit from protecting nature is something that I've enjoyed working on. And I think this is really true in Goa here as well, where we have so many tourists coming to Goa every single year and treating our home as a place to explore and adventure, but also problematically sometimes destroying that landscape. And I think for us as Goans, as people who call Goa home, it's really important to figure out ways to monetize that tourism, but in a way that actually is sustainable and that allows us to have these beautiful beaches and these snakes and these animals for a long time. And I think one of the things that I was thinking about, when she described us as two Goans coming here to speak to people in Goa, is that there are so many people here who've come from different parts of India and the world who've made Goa home and who are contributing so much to the conservation in this place, and it's also working collaboratively with locals, and I think that's what makes Goa so special. I left, like I said, when I was 15, and I keep coming back home, and I would argue that conservationists and filmmakers who are part of movements like My Mala, for example, they're doing so much more for Goa than some of us who have left. So I have so much respect and I'm inspired constantly by the ecological movements in our state.
You want people who are watching Bollywood Wives, or whatever that's called, to be watching stuff on wildlife and natural world, actually. So that's the audience you want to grasp. I want to grasp, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. What are both of you most excited about in 2025?
In general?
Related to it can be in general.
Would you want to know this?
Well, I think we're doing multiple things at Anting Planet. Right now we have a natural history series, we're doing a show about food and sustainability, we're doing some filming in the Eastern Himalayas that Amoli is leading. Two of my colleagues who are here, Akash and Nithya, are working on two incredible edit projects right now. So I'm really excited about the idea of growing a film production company that's based both in Goa and in New York. I think that both places are incredibly special. They have very different forms of culture and community when it comes to environmental storytelling and media at large. But I'm really excited to grow our company and to keep telling stories about nature and the environment to mainstream it.
I'm excited to watch that film. I'm going to film it. No, and sleep, and keep making films. Yeah, it's exciting. That's what's happening.
So we may have a lot of inspiring wildlife filmmakers, photographers, enthusiasts who even like taking photos and videos on their phone of the natural world. So what would you say to them?
Keep taking photos, keep, what would you say? I mean, if they take photos, like my sister said in the car, I mean, if they're, people who take photos, they're already in love with what they're watching. So, yeah, I mean, you know what you're doing. But very specific questions, I'm happy to meet you after this. But yeah, with wildlife, be careful, respect it. They're not cute and cuddly things. Keep your distance, don't pose with them. Be ethical, read about ethics in photography and filming, educate yourself, and keep shooting.
I think I would probably do a very good job answering that question. So I'll answer it for everyone who's not a wildlife filmmaker, photographer in the making. If you are someone who's here in the room today, I assume you have an interest in nature, but I also recognize that you might have very different career paths than us. You might be an architect or a writer or a politician or a business person. And I think there's so much power in taking your passion for nature and using your skill set to really position and leverage that at the highest levels. When people ask me, what can I do for nature? I say, pursue excellence. And that sounds kind of crazy, but I think when you pursue excellence, when you're very, very good at your job and you are able to do the best you can collaboratively, then if you can use that platform to advocate for nature, to bring people into the room, to change conversations, and sometimes it's not about reaching out to millions of people. I focus on reaching out to people through television. But if you have 6 people in the room who work in Goa's government, for example, if you're at a party with people who are developing projects in our state, those conversations are probably way more impactful than the conversations I can have as a filmmaker and TV presenter on television. So recognize the power of your network and the agency you hold, and really reach out to people and make that impact, because we've got something really special here at Protecting Goa.
That's a lovely. Should we take questions?
Yeah, we'll take a few questions from the audience.
Yes, please.
Good evening. Both the movies are very nice and they give the message correctly. In the movie, one of the shouts, "Hey, you bite your finger, you bite." My question is, why do the snake catchers use gloves while catching the snake? I asked many people, we have caught many snakes in my garden, but every time, you see, but why is it from the expert I would like to know if he's there?
He's right here.
Why is it not using the gloves?
When do you want to?
This is a good question. There's nothing to do with filmmaking. I'll answer the question for sure.
Yeah.
Should I answer it now?
Go for it.
Yeah,
Are you comfortable doing it?
obviously.
Go for it.
He's a TV presenter now.
No, I'm not comfortable in talking.
Can we talk about the filmmaking research?
I will be very short. Okay, so forget about gloves. We'll talk about shoes. Okay, like in my every when the captain snakes use shoes, or if a snake is wearing shoes, and I used to always use boots. Now I mostly go barefoot for rescues, or I go without boots. The reason I used to wear boots is because while searching for the snake, I might stand a thong or a nail or a rusty piece of glass that would injure me badly. So that is so that, not to protect myself from the snake. Because while rescuing a snake is so close to the snake, it can bite your hand, and if you are wearing gloves, it might or might not help you, depending on what gloves it is. Second thing, it can bite your thigh, your chest, it can bite you anywhere. If you're wearing shoes, it can bite above your ankle, on your knee, on your body. So while rescuing a snake, once you spot the snake, you need to be very, very careful. So once I see the snake, then when I have gloves or shoes, it does not really matter. I'm not letting the snake bite me. Second thing is with gloves on, you can't feel when you're hanging a wild animal, you can't feel very well. So it slips from your hand and accidents can happen. And the third thing about wearing gloves or boots for that matter is that you tend to get lax. Sometimes because you know you're wearing gloves, and you think if the snake bites you, it's fine. It becomes a habit. So people have this habit of letting the snake bite their shoes, for example. One day I rescue, probably I go for a wedding and I have to rescue a snake. They are not having gloves on, I don't have shoes on. But I have this habit which is in my mind that if the snake bites my hand, I'm fine, but now I don't have gloves on. And if the snake bites me, I can hear it. So these things don't really work. I probably have to wear full knight's armor if I want to catch snakes in the situation.
Thank you, Venkat. Are there any more questions from the audience?
I have many.
So we'll take.
We'll
We'll
meet you outside so we can release others.
I think we have a question in the back there.
Mine is not really a question, it's just an aspect. So first of all, I come from the island of Diwar. And so we have an organization or an institution which is very, very ancient. And these ancient institutions and organizations are responsible for the habitats and for the way the land itself is formed and the way it's managed. Now, unfortunately, these institutions are kind of hardly heard about, or they are marginalized, or nothing in terms of being any kind of research or documentation is being done about them. So my suggestion or request is that something be done about it. So these organizations are called, in Konkani, they are called documentaries. The documentaries come from the word gaon, and the Portuguese appellation for that is comunidade. So if you go to any village, whatever you see around the village was established by the native inhabitant communities of that village, and that was done BC. So the bunds which we have in Diwar all around my village were built somewhere 2000 BC. And these form a particular kind of landmass which interacts with all the kind of elements all around, and they promote the kind of life that inhabits in those kind of habitats. So it's an interplay between the estuarine, the riverine, then you have the sluice gates and saltwater pans, you have horticulture, you have dairy, you have floriculture, everything is entwined. But unfortunately, this aspect of Goa, we say Goa, 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 but nobody speaks about Konkani, which in itself is the very basis of what Goa is. And it is not only in terms of natural heritage, it is actually enshrined in the very constitution. So it has bearings which are not just hearsay. So let's take for example the Birewar lake in Messes, or take any other lake in any village. All these were made by the Pundidas. Why they were made? Because it has a whole system. It's a water harvesting system. It stops the salinity from ingression, and so on and so forth. So my request basically is if you guys can do something about documenting this, filming this, which is like unbelievable amount of rich heritage.
We'll look into it for sure.
Directly connected to natural heritage. And we as members of these community institutions, we would love to help. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
We have J. Akash from 92.7 Big FM to take a few questions from the
One important
public.
question I want to make. Not one statement I want to make. Okay,
Let's
in Goa, right now, in Goa, rightfully, as we say, all these animals, trees, are considered like what? They're what? Have you seen anybody shooting a dog, killing a dog? Any Goans? No. During Portuguese time, it requires special license. Only one person was there here who used to kill dogs. Portuguese time, I was small, I know this story. So, it's so good. In Goa, respect for animals, respect for environment was there. But now, slightly small problems are creeping. Okay, this is there. So these awareness videos are being made by many people, particularly regarding snake. There was a belief in Goa or India, we can say. The snake will come in the night and then movies are there, Nagini or something, a dancing to the tune and all fake news.
You got it from
Narratives.
But I agree with you because I'm not from here and I didn't grow up here, and now I have seen the people here over the last 7 years. The respect for snakes and other wildlife in Goa is definitely higher than a lot of other places I've been to, and so I agree with you.
That is
Yeah,
correct.
that is true because the way people are much more patient with snakes compared to villages I've seen somewhere else.
If
Where
you
they
are
kill
noticing
snakes.
month of June, in
So I think
month of
we'll
June,
take
wait,
questions
wait,
from
one man. People should understand. See, in month of June, if you see a particular day, the ladies go around the banyan tree with thread.
That's
Have
right.
you seen that?
I have, yes.
It is like what? The tree is what?
It's true.
So, this from very ancient, that is an ancient like Goa. Nobody wants to kill snake. They just drive it away. I got a video. I got 3 snakes.
I'll
In
come
my
check
eye.
out your video later.
I will give you.
Thank you.
Very wonderful. And the very surprising story is that one day I caught one snake, next day I caught another snake. The previous snake also came back. We are letting fish.
They're
That's
friends,
it.
they're friends.
The other snake also came. Alright, but he was free, of course. Both snakes, almond and white maybe. Either almond and white is snake.
Okay, so
Great.
now
Okay.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient.
Thank you so much. Hello guys, myself RJ Akash from 92.7 Big FM and I host evening show from 5 to 9 p.m. And I've got few questions from the listeners towards the films. So these are very basic questions because I think most of the points are already discussed over here. So I have 4 questions from various listeners of ours. So I'd like to, it's a general question, anyone can answer. Okay, so the first question is from Rekha Mehta. So how do you think these films reflect unique heritage of region and what message do you hope viewers will take away from this?
I think a sense of ownership. I feel like it's really important to believe that something belongs to you and feel love and respect for it before you can protect it. So ownership is where it's at.
I'll answer the next one.
Sure.
That will be cover 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the next question is from Pradnya Gaukar. She's saying, Goa is often seen as a tourism hotspot, but it is also rich in biodiversity, the biodiversity often goes unnoticed. So how cinematic storytelling can shift the focus towards nature, natural heritage and also about conserving them?
Well, once you've seen a tiger in the wild, or you've actually seen wildlife with your eyes, and you appreciated it, then there is no going back. So I think visual cinema has a huge impact in the way we feel as people, how we see something, how we engage with the world. So visuals have that impact. When we see an animal getting killed, we feel it. We are very empathetic as human beings. So I think that's why visual cinema is important, because you can hear, like we're talking, you'll forget the 1,000 words you said. But once you've seen that snake hurting in the net, or you've seen those beautiful otters in their family, you'll never forget those visuals. So I think that's why cinema is important.
Very, very sensible. Thank you. The next question is, what were the various challenges that you all faced while filming this movie? And also, how did you overcome them? These are very basic questions.
That's yours.
I think actually getting shows commissioned is the hardest part of it. Making them is not that hard. But I would say that in general, when it comes to making films, it is the balance between nuance and entertainment. Because just as much as it is important to make sure that films are entertaining, it's really important to make sure that we have different perspectives and we have the nuance that's at the core of that storytelling. So making sure that we're leaning into science, we're working with scientists, we're working with conservationists, with politicians, with indigenous leaders, with economists, I think is one of my favorite parts of the filmmaking process. Amoli is a researcher as well, and when we speak to people and when we're talking to people during these research moments, I think I learned so much from it, and it's then the process of synthesizing all of the research and saying that this is what is most important to the storytelling. So I think the research and synthesis is most critical.
Thank you. And the last question is from Zebulon Mendoza, asking, cinematically capturing nature often involves a balance between art and activism. So how do you approach this balance in your work, especially when it comes to addressing the conservation?
Wow, that's a basic question. Art and activism, beautiful question. I would love to have a conversation with him, but this is where we live, this is the fine balance. because we're artists. I feel I'm an artist first and the filmmaker. I love making film. And then the impact bit is how I want people to feel. But that's a hard balance to keep. But I think, wow, that's a long conversation. Do you have a short answer to that? I have a short. He made me think. Good question. I was thinking about this when I was coming here actually.
Okay.
Because when I see the film, at least for mine, I see only mistakes of how I could have done it better. Why didn't I have a camera there? Why didn't I do this? That sound is awful. I can only see the mistakes. But when as an artist, when I'm thinking, I'm looking at it like that. But when I'm thinking of activism, then I feel relieved and I know why this film was made or these episodes were made. And I think that's a balance all artists are constantly feeling. But as I've grown older, I do feel that activism, like what Malaika was saying earlier, it's about talking to the room you're in. Like if I can change one person's mind, that's activism. I don't need to be angry, anger and rage will not change the world. So we need to change the world with a lot of love and a lot of kindness. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered his question. I want to meet him and have a conversation.
That those were the questions for today. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
So we will have that at 5 p.m. We have to.
Because I got carried away.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak about the movie much. The movies, both the films are excellent and very complicated. In the movie, I noticed that one of the actors is carrying a big knife. Okay. Stopping.
Oh, he was cutting through the bush.
How
So he's not an actor,
the
he's a
movie?
scientist actually.
Where did she find that?
The knife.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you very
I'm
much.
happy to connect you with them for knife recommendations.
It's not available in Goa because Goa.
I also need one. Malaika, you just do that.
I will hook everyone up with good knives
Yes,
here.
small light also they don't carry. Big. I want to buy it because now it is up you.
Yeah.
I'll give
Okay.
permission.
Thank you. So I think it was a wonderful panel. Thank you all the panelists and moderators. So as a token of our love and to thank them, we would like to hand over a few label pins. So these are WWF label pins. They are in the shape of different birds. So starting with Doel. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
So next